All right, here we are live. Dr. Paul here from various Substacks that you all know well. I am on with yet another interesting guest, a friend and acquaintance, originally an acquaintance of mine from New York City, Wally Shaykoun, who I like describing as my Masri friend, being Egyptian.
Yeah.
Welcome, Wally. Wally is a very gifted man. It's kind of hard to describe him in a way, kind of a natural magician of psychology of some sort. He has a natural intuitive gift that I don't think is just me puffing you up or something. You're extremely intuitive person, and you are a life coach. You've had extensive training and experience in the area of conflicted coupledom, let's say.
Yeah.
And what do people do about that? And most of us know about the master technology of the field of marriage today would be Gottman therapy. So nothing beats Gottman therapy. It's like mathematically perfect, but it really, in my mind, has nothing to say about dating, relationships, and certainly not about screening out narcissism, which is on the rise in the Western world for several decades for various reasons we may not go into right here. But while he trained it, like, how do you counter a train wreck about to happen? A train is going off, the car is going off the cliff of your relationship. Is there anything you can do to reverse that or change the trajectory? And there's a lot to say about public speakers out there and entrepreneurs on that subject and what they're doing. We'll get to that. Welcome, Wally.
And thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Yeah, I love you explained my intuitive ability and power quite well there. It's for me, it's like being a Sufi or a medicine man in the old days, in the sense of being
Mm,
connected with the higher spirit, the higher calling, and what it is understanding and connecting to the person's hurt body and feeling and getting in touch with it. As soon as it happens, and it's a lot of it's heart based, which broadcasting, receiving information is, conducted in that sphere, in that porthole that's created. That allows me to kind of feel what's happening in their body, where energy is moving, where energy is stuck, and then once I understand what's going on, then I can kind of dissect it, define it, and then tell them what's going on and what's holding them back. And then with this question about the train wreck of a relationship, you can't really control the other person. All you can do is control yourself and how you decide to show up, how you decide to react in the moment of a relationship that's headed in that direction. So it takes one of you to get out of one's way, and when the hurt and the pain and the emotions start coming, instead of allowing that to trigger you and start operating from a place of hurt, is taking responsibility for that hurt in your own way and doing emotional work and trying to figure out what it is you're doing or not doing that's causing part of this. And and to if you're able to shift on yourself, your energy, you can shift away from them having control over you, because a narcissist, and we all know, is about them controlling the narrative, them controlling the situation, or
yeah.
flipping it on you. I mean, even with my ex-wife, who I worked really hard to get her back, and she came back for 2.5 years. But that 2.5 years, there was no intimacy. I was trying to reconnect with her. It became very tiresome. It was more about her living off of me and being there to take care of the kids, and her saying things like, "I'm only here to take care of the kids. You should pay me to take care of the kids." Were comments that was like, "What?"
Well, that's
So we
isn't that a weird thing? Let's jump into like a subtopic, betrayal. Okay.
mhm.
First, let me say, can I say you do have medicine man hair for you this morning and me late night. That's great. But the idea of betrayal, there's a lot of research about, everybody's aware of this, that males males are most hurt by a sexual betrayal. Females are most hurt by an emotional betrayal. And yet there are bell curves of people, right? So I can easily see it being overlooked that if a male is betrayed in some fashion, emotionally, spiritually, even going back to the concept of what is commitment or what is a marriage ceremony, there's supposed to be some kind of sacrament. You don't necessarily have to be a religious person, but you are, yes, legally, there are all these legal boundaries around what is a marriage, but there's also a kind of moral, spiritual commitment made for life when you take
Mm,
vows. Vows are vows. They're called vows
mhm.
because they're vows. Don't do it if you can't be
Hey,
a kind of person who can vow through thick and thin to be there for the other person, even if you're mad at each other and
mm,
don't quite understand each other, barring, of course, extreme things like violence of some sort or domestic
yeah,
violence.
or
But
emotional abuse as well.
exactly, or back to the idea of betrayal. Betrayal doesn't have to always be sexual. It can be somebody saying, "Yes, let's get back together," but then months later, "Oh, well, I'm just here because I love my kids." AKA, I don't love you, and you get to pay for things for me.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
that is a betrayal.
it's a
You know,
violation of an agreement, a
right.
contract. The person's word is no good. So what I always go back to is at the very start. You know that I've worked out a complete set of steps of human courtship, and I call it romantic dynamics. But for couple decades of developing it, I neglected that the very first thing people ought to do before even starting to date would be at least to get some kind of an assessment of how mature is the other person, AKA how lacking in narcissism is the other person. Because if they're
Mm,
highly narcissistic, you may be playing the game of being an empathic person, playing the game of love, and I
right.
think being empathic is part of a description of what you're exceptional at in
Yeah,
advising people versus being immature and highly narcissistic, in which case you're playing the game of what's in it for me. And if nobody
exactly.
ever dopes this out about each other, then it's
Mm,
one person's playing, football and the other person's playing chess and the rules don't match and you get confused and it's easy to get
yeah.
manipulated that
Yeah,
way.
and for her, it was me, and for her, is for me begging her in a way of masculine, leading her to say, "Hey, you're doing a certain behavior, and that behavior is hurting me. I'm asking you to stop that behavior." Instead of stopping the behavior, she would turn around and ramp it up a hundredfold,
Uh, or explain
you
it
know?
away.
Yeah, or
Say,
lie,
"You're
continue
causing
to,
it."
yeah, you're
Or it's
causing
even
it,
worse, it's in your face,
or
"I'm telling you I'm still going to do it, and it's your fault
yeah,
that I'm still doing it."
like it's like
Yeah,
the same thing when she cheated on me, for example. It's like, oh, I'm going out to meet a friend, and I'm gonna go out to meet my best friend, who's a girl. And then I stumble upon her, and she's not with that friend. She's with sitting with a guy.
okay.
Those sort of things. I'm like, oh, and then I would sit down next to them, like, oh, so you're doing this again, and I'm asking you to stop this behavior, but it's hurting me, and I already have PTSD from the last time what
Yeah.
happened. And then she would just sit there, but it was a boasting the ego. And this is
Mhm.
what narcissists do. They kind of connect to their ego, and the ego wants to protect them. And they're sitting there smoking a cigarette. They're looking at you like, "I'm gonna win. I'm gonna beat you. I'm gonna tear you down." You know. So it comes down to them feeling so hurt and wanting control and controlling the narrative that they want to beat you down because you didn't do something, or you didn't hear them, you didn't understand them, you didn't do the one thing that they wanted. So instead of them trying to play back in, how can I communicate with this person to get what I want? Because in any relationship, we all want something, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
intimacy, it's more love, it's connection, understanding. For her, I just it was like the joke of, when she came back, it's ding it as a gold digger, and a joke is
Mm.
a joke, but half of a joke is truth, right?
Well, a friend of mine, just joined. I was actually going to kinda loosely paraphrase her or quote her, Dr. Natalie Martinek, so shout out. to her.
Hello,
She's an
Natalie.
expert on the absolute expert on narcissism. And she's focused to some degree. We all know about like every blog and story the last 20 years is about male narcissists. But part of what makes her unique is finding that narcissism, the way I was trained, is it's equal opportunity to both sexes. I mean, anybody can be
Yeah.
narcissistic. Doesn't matter what your ethnicity is, your gender, your sex, sexuality. Anybody can be narcissistic, but we neglect it in females, and it doesn't mean males aren't equally so. But if we neglect half of
Mhm.
humanity, then we're missing
Yeah.
the boat, on a
Yeah.
lot. And Natalie's an expert on, lately, I've seen her writing a lot about what has been called covert narcissism, which is kind of like, instead of in your face, "Hey, I'm better than you, and for me to be
Mm,
right, I have to make you wrong," and stating that outright, it's more like, "Who, me? Little old me? I'm a
mhm.
helpless little creature.
Victim. It's always a
Why
victim. I
how
was
how
starting
could you
to like
think
the
that
male.
I am using you or manipulating you?" But yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
happening. So, what do you think of that? I mean, what
Well,
has been your trajectory? Because back when I first met you, or we ran in similar Venn diagram
yeah.
circles in New York City, and you kinda knew who I was and I kinda knew who you were. What happened from your charismatic days back in the day to
So that's
reemergence
interesting.
now?
Well, what's interesting, back then I was lost as, I had this gift, which for me, I always thought was a curse for feeling everything around me, everyone, and taking on energy. And, back then I was a bit more of a playboy and being in the fashion world as a fashion photographer. So before I met my wife, obviously I was, doing what young men do is basically sleeping around. But I found that to be a very hurtful, very painful place to be. And, in one way it was feeding the ego, and the other way it was hurting me, my soul, because when you're intimate with somebody, you're taking on their energy and vice versa. And every time I would be with some woman, I would take on a part of her. I've broken down crying during that period, and out of loneliness, out of anger, out of hate, out of fear. And then before when I met my wife, I was like, it's almost like I did, and I did do this. I prayed to God. I'm like, send me someone to love and for me to love them, because I was just tired of just being with multiple partners at that time. And then I met my wife, and then just committed to her. And then as we, you know, got divorced and broke up, I found this part of myself, this peace, and now it's like I'm back in the dating game, and I'm meeting several women at different ages in different parts of their life. And as I said earlier, before we got on a call, there was a woman I met who's also a coach that was had red flags and very narcissistic behavior and very
Mhm.
demanding. And I just closed the door before I even opened it up even further and just said I had no intentions of intimacy with you, because I knew if I go into the physical part with it, it would just make things worse. So I'd lose my peace. I would lose myself. I would lose that part of me that I now am enjoying, which is coming back to my truth, who I want to be as a man that I want to be and show up as. Don't want to
Yeah.
put myself into a situation that would go back to like when we learn how to pick, it's more of a feeling. And like, yeah, she's beautiful. Yes, she's hot. Yes, she's this or that, but something in me stirred and said, "No, this is not for you, and
Mhm.
this is red flag." So I think a lot of it when we go back to when we're, it's not just about the question; it's also the feeling. How do you feel? What are you really feeling about this person that you're having interest
Yeah.
in? Is it just because they're beautiful? Is it just because um, something else? Can you pick up the cues from them? Because women will often test you on a date, and they'll question you, they'll try to engage with you and try to see certain responses from you to understand who you are as a man and how you take them and how you stand alone. Are
Yeah.
you are you stoic, or are you a needy little bitch boy? If something triggers you in the conversation.
They have to. I
Right.
consider that to be the 3rd step of human courtship, where women
Yeah.
test men. and everything, repeats and cycles and cycles. You
Yeah.
might go your whole life or your whole marriage getting tested here and there, but the testing is reassurance unconsciously and
Yeah.
instinctively on their part to know that you are providing safety, security, your provider
Yeah,
protector.
exactly. And that's something that interesting you just brought up as well. I just figured this out a couple months ago. Um, that women want safety and security, emotional safety and security, financial safety, safety and security, and physical safety and security. Right.
Right.
But I put physical and
They can
financial in
always
the
get a
same.
Ring camera for the latter, though. I saw a
But
commercial recently, incidentally, about, I guess, a competitor to Ring. Maybe it was Simply
yeah,
Safe. And
yeah,
this single woman came home alone. There were robbers in the alley. There were dogs. There was danger. And then she got into her home and then felt simply safe, completely
yeah,
safe, because there were all these cameras everywhere and
right.
bells and whistles and rings. So maybe in this day and age, barring there being World War III or something like this, then things will change. Women
Mm,
don't need men for the physical safety so much anymore, although they wouldn't walk down a dark alley in the middle of the night,
right, right.
perhaps in New
Yeah,
York. But there's
yeah, exactly.
technology, right?
Yeah, there's a technology and but there's also this other thing that I picked up on, which was I found very interesting because I was able to empathically feel and sense something. I was talking to a friend of mine and she had some movement in her body and then I felt her guard go down, and then and I said, "Oh, this is interesting feeling." It's kind of like women not only need those three kind of safety and security, so it's there's a third, why I like to call it the third wall. It's energetic safety and security. Are you energetically safe?
Okay. Example would be a stressed out guy in a high performing profession who's always stressed and somewhat anxious and kind of depressive. That's
Yeah,
not safe energetically. That's not a, she wants him to be a happy person.
yeah, exactly. And it's the same adage, like part that I have in my book is, you know, does a man come home from work and does he bring work home with him? And if he does, and he's still triggered about something that happened at work, what's happening is everybody's feeling him. His partner, his wife is walking
Yeah.
on eggshells. The kids are walking on eggshells, or vice versa. If you don't deal with that hurt before you walk into the house, you're taking that energy into the home and disrupting everybody's place and energy and safety in all those other ways of physical safety, emotional safety, are not being affected because of your energetic
Well,
negative
I think it's the
entanglement.
one
Mm,
valid thing about
yeah,
some of the marketers out there that sell themselves to male clients that want to save their marriages. There's one
right.
new, I won't even say the
Mm,
person's name, somebody new on that scene making a lot of money. And it took me a little while to see through what it was, but these coaching programs and designs of coaching programs, the way they seem to work to me is to either they're good for a man who is kind of a bad guy,
yeah.
you know, kind of a criminal mind, a narcissist himself who needs to change his ways and learn how to become a good person instead of being manipulative and basically abusive. It would be useful to that guy, which I don't think is that big of a segment of
Mm,
society, if you will, or it's actually encouraging a good guy to betray himself and
yeah.
cater to the narcissism of the partner. I guess I should say it's probably a 50-50 split,
Yeah,
chances
actually,
being.
I would think in that if you're well in the relational realm of that, it's yeah, it's most guys aren't haven't been initiated as men and they're still boys. And it's not necessary that they're a criminal mind or whatever. It's more that a lot of men, haven't grew up, haven't
Well,
learned
like
to
an
be
adolescent
responsible.
boy
Yeah, like an
is the
adolescent
most
boy.
likely
Yeah.
person to be incarcerated.
Yeah, exactly. And it's though that happens, and that's why a lot of women who are in relationships, sometimes say that their husband is like the third child, that
Mm.
and that comes up a lot of the times in relationships and marriages. It's like you're my third child because now I have to be your mommy. I'm a mommy to these, but you're not standing up as a man. You're not standing up as a partner. You're standing up as a child in the home because you become needy. You're not getting the love and attention you once had before children. So now the love shifts from her to the children, and your part is now to work for that love and work for the home and making sure that everything is provided for. It's like a great example is Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee. And
Okay.
Tommy Lee punched her out, knocked her out,
I didn't know
and
that.
Tommy Lee back when they were married,
Yeah.
and they just had, I think, their like third child or something like this, and
Yeah.
he needed mommy, and mommy wasn't there for him, and he got so triggered and so upset that he actually punched her and knocked her out.
I did not
You
know
know,
that. So
because
now
Tommy
she's
Lee
with the
was
opposite kinda guy,
yeah,
Liam
yeah,
Neeson,
yeah,
right? Like a true gentleman.
exactly.
Huh.
Who's done the work, who is stoic, who is,
And
calm
was
and
long
peaceful.
time committed
It is, and long
to
time commitment.
to his wife,
His wife, yeah.
who
Mm,
passed on unfortunately in that ski accident.
yeah.
Um, wow. Well, one of the things that well, first let me go back to Dr. Natalie Martinek, and one of the things she talks
Mm,
a lot recently about is what she calls discernment, which, as far as I can understand, means developing what therapists would call
mm,
mentalization ability, or what Freud called observing ego. It means self-reflection ability, as well
mhm,
as seeing the environment simultaneously and trying to match the two together. That's called mentalization. But when she calls this discernment, she's meaning knowing what is true without it being verbalized. Like,
mm.
you know what time it is, they used to
Yeah,
say, or
yeah.
you get it, you get what's going on in the
It's a
other
feeling,
person.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can feel
Intuitive,
it, you can sense it, intuitive.
and you
And
know
women
what's
have
true.
this, and you know it's true, and you don't even have to ask the question because you can feel it.
Right,
If you're
right.
attuned to it, like such as myself, it's like what I have is what women have, but as a man, it's really interesting because what I have is what they have, but it's higher. It's been worked on. It's been cultivated.
Mhm.
It's been like as I move along in life over the last years, it's getting more and more powerful, more and more like I could. It's like almost like being in the matrix. I could see everything. I can feel everything, and I
Yeah,
can understand what it is that I'm seeing and I'm feeling, and that's what it is. It's that discernment of understanding. You don't have to ask. You can feel it. You can sense it. It's like a feeling
right,
in the gut, or as they say,
without
that
having
I
to
can
define it.
without having to find it.
Maybe you've seen this before. You might have an intuition that rises up in you and feels strong about a partner that is denied, not admitted to, not detailed
Oh,
verbally. Say, for example, cheating, and
yeah.
you have this strange feeling like a
Oh,
person's
yeah,
cheating or
yeah. I
has
had that with my
betrayed you in some
yeah,
way.
yeah.
And they have all kinds of verbal explanations for where they were and what they were
Mhm.
doing, and, and why, but you just felt something was wrong. And then perhaps weeks or months later, you don't feel that as much or at all.
Yeah,
And if
because you
you
pushed it away, yeah.
well, no, because if you go back to the timeline of what really was happening in your discernment,
Mm,
you probably were right that in some way, it may not be sexual, but in some way, somebody was being dishonest with you or betraying you in some way or being selfish at your expense in some way or down talking you or gossiping about you
mm.
for a time. And then they ceased doing it because a friendship ended that they had that you never knew about, or they simply decided to stop doing what they were doing. And
Yeah,
that's why you didn't feel it anymore. And if you doubled
right.
back on the real truth about everything that did happen, if people fessed up, you find out your discernment or your intuition was accurate.
Accurate, yeah, and that's what happened with me with my ex-wife. I knew that she cheated on me. She denied it. The guy that she cheated with was also a friend, and I felt it in my stomach. And I asked him, I said, "Did you sleep with her when she came to Greece?" And I had that gnawing, turning, twisting feeling in my
Yeah.
in my diaphragm. And he's like, "What? No." And then he
That's what I
just
mean. Yeah,
and I felt it, and then I asked her, and she's like, "No, no, no, no." But when we went through the divorce, I called him and I said, "Hey, look, we're going through this situation again. I just wanna know from you is, and
yeah.
either you continue to deny it, but I know it happened. Did you sleep with her?" And he actually came out and said, "Yes," 4 or 5
Mhm.
times.
Wow. So he was
And then
apologizing in a way.
he apologized, and then I
Yeah.
forgave him,
Okay.
and he couldn't believe that I forgave him, and that set him free from, the hurt that he caused for
Yeah.
himself.
But your gut was right. Your gut
That
was
was
right.
right.
I mean, the thing for people to know, not just to go with
Mm,
your gut and assume things and get paranoid. Your gut is almost always right, but you don't know the exact details of how.
circumstance.
It might not be sexual, it could be someone was gossiping about you who you thought was your most intimate, trusted friend or partner,
Exactly.
and you didn't know it. You don't know the exact
Exactly.
context, in other words, but your gut is
Exactly.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another weird thing, the way we're trained, I was trained initially 25 plus years ago when they would teach us a little bit here and there about couples counseling. At the time, there was not that much technology, if you will. A lot of it
Right.
was just family systems, therapy, and kind of supportive. There was no guaranteed technology of what is a marriage psychologically, what really makes it work. Even to this day, I've said multiple times has not been a technology of human courtship. What are the exact steps? I've
Right.
come as close as I can to in romantic dynamics to do that. Today, there's Gottman, though, for couples. Well, back in the day when they first taught us this and that about kind of mumbo jumbo, supportive therapy kinds of techniques, I always thought if somebody betrays somebody, if you're a male, somebody betrays you sexually, or if you're a female, somebody betrays you emotionally and lies, that's
Mm,
it. Courtship is off. And throughout and I used to think to myself, they got to be crazy thinking they can use couples counseling to mend fences somehow and bring two people back together after there's been some massive betrayal. I don't think that's
yeah.
possible. I really don't. And
Yeah.
from a science perspective, every species in the animal kingdom, the purpose of courtship is not to find your mate, to find your soulmate,
Homemade.
like matchmaking. It is to exclude those who are not qualified for
Yeah.
you, which means once a rule has been broken, that's it. Ended right there psychologically.
And I think that's part of what the issue is that, why I wrote the book that I wrote, write a passage to heal the boy to heal the man
Heal
you're
the
meant to
boy to
be.
heal the man. Let's tell me the
And,
title of your book again and what is it about? Rite
um,
of passage. Rite of
Rite of
passage.
passage, and it's a rite of passage, heal the boy to heal the man you're meant to be. It's a book that I wrote, to help men become initiated into the world, into the relationships as a father, as a man, as a business owner, and it's a book that I created to um, to orient men back into being men. When we go back into like it's also part of me where I saw that where I didn't want to give up on even though I was hurt, even though I was betrayed. You know, m- I thought that I loved this person so deeply, and she's the mother of my children, that I was doing everything to betray myself by trying to get her back when I was becoming a
Mhm.
coach, when I was in this other program, about men becoming men in order to get their partners back to stop the divorce. And I didn't stop the divorce, but I managed to get my wife to move back in with me for 2.5 years. But in that time, I saw that I was the one sacrificing my emotions, my finances, who I am as a man
Yeah.
for someone who I felt didn't care about me anymore. Lived that, and it came to a point where, wait a minute, I'm not standing as a man. I'm not standing for myself, not loving myself enough, or giving certain sacrifices for Wally again that I wanted to get back to, and there was no peace. So the book is written out of, a big need for men to start to go through the rite of passage. And it doesn't matter what age you're at. It's getting back into the masculine, getting back into the understanding, and getting back
Mhm.
into being stoic in the stoicism of what men should be, right? As gladiators, as warriors, as men, right? And we're not gladiators or warriors as we were back then, but in today's, like, how do you become a gladiator at your job or your business? How do you win? How do you win in the right way? Win
Mm.
with positivity and provide for your family. And yes, if you go through a divorce, you can either be angry at your ex-wife, or do you, show up the way you want to show up as men and treat her with kindness and love and respect, because at the end of the day, she is the mother of your children. So, you know, so the book was written for men to heal, to grow, to become. There's a lot of men who commit suicide because of the feeling of they're not good enough or unworthy or not lovable because they're
Yeah.
not. They didn't learn to love
Eight
themselves. Yeah,
are male. Yeah.
yeah,
In the UK and US.
yeah,
That's a football stadium full per year.
yeah.
50 to 75,000.
For example, I have a friend who runs a men's modeling agency in London, and he asked one of his models, how many friends did you lose to suicide? Kid said 23.
Wow.
What's crazy about that is a lot of younger men do it right after they graduate high school,
Yeah.
and they have a
It's
party. They invite their
killer in the
yeah,
UK of
yeah,
adolescent and young men
yeah,
is suicide.
yeah,
It's not car wrecks or
yeah,
physical violence toward each other.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this book was, and I had a young man here in my Airbnb. I could see that there was something going on with him, and managed to get a conversation with him and talk a bit about where he's at and what's coming up for him. And because of the book he had in his hand, and I said, "Oh, great, you're working on yourself." I think it was Iron John or something like that. So
Okay.
that got me interested in creating this book, which is, men who will read it will start to get into doing the deeper work and um, start to resonate with themselves again.
So
It's
rite of passage is the title of the book. Heal
yeah,
the boy to heal the man.
yeah,
And your company is renewingtheman.com.
renewingtheman.com.
So this is a very near and dear topic to me. The concept of a rite of passage to me implies initiation, right?
Yes,
And
big time. Yeah.
historically that concept initiation has been relegated to being more in the world of anthropology, like studying
Hmm.
cultures, what different cultures throughout history, how did they initiate boys and girls, if they
Yeah,
initiated girls at all. And they take them out into the wilderness and they have to kill a tiger or a bear or survive the
yeah,
night in the snow and things like this. And
yeah,
all the while, the elders of the village were secretly watching them to make sure nobody did die,
yeah,
hopefully. But the boys felt like they might die. My understanding then of that is that it's not just anthropological. I think it's a fourth and last psychological transformative process
mm,
for humans
absolutely.
that
Yeah,
would be called an imprinting process.
yeah, yeah,
And like if you ever saw the movie The 300, King
yeah,
Leonidas as a boy is out in the snowy wilderness and a lion is or a wolf. A
yeah.
wolf is
Oof,
coming toward him and he like wedges himself in between two rocks and like
yeah,
spears the wolf and kills the wolf.
yeah,
Well, for males versus females, my understanding from some of the recent social scientists like Jonathan Haidt at NYU or Rob Henderson, some of these speakers and writers in sociology talk about how women automatically get initiated just by organically living and growing.
yeah,
At some point, most of them do have the opportunity to have offspring throughout human history. And so
yeah,
the pregnancy process itself automatically, slowly, 9 months slow, and organically creates the woman who is now mother, not just
Right.
single woman. But for males, there is no organic, natural, automatic process that's going to happen to them in a timely way to
Hmm.
cause them to become men, except I think maybe traumas. But you can't count on when traumas are going to happen to
Right.
men. I think here's a tie between your work in traumatology for males and your work
Yeah.
with couples and this concept of what is masculinity that are all
Right.
wrapped together by way of trauma is the way that males initiate
Yeah.
today into complete
Yeah.
adult
And yeah,
manhood.
exactly. Yeah. And that's what the issue is that men are, more trauma bonding with women rather than, organically allowing a relationship to happen or to be acquired per se. Like what I've noticed here living in Slovenia, the women complain here that men are all by themselves, and women feel neglected, unheard, unlistened to. All the guys are still stuck, and it's all ancestral as well on top of it. So there's,
Yeah.
and then, like talking to some guys here, and I've had the opportunity to work with a couple guys spontaneously, where I got some emotions up and out of them, and what was going on for them, and how they just swallow that down, how they just pull it down, and then hope that they throw themselves into a relationship, and they're going to be saved. Right? And there's that old adage that women want a man that they can change, and a man wants a woman that will never change,
All
in
right.
that sense.
Right.
But
Yeah.
then if you're not okay with yourself and you're depending on that person to help you, to fix you, and you start to change, then the relationship essentially is over at that time, because as a man, being stoic, as if you were initiated, you would know how to stand in your masculine. You would know how to stand in your peace, and you'd know how to not take things so personally and get triggered. And then you would respond to the situation with stoicism and with like confidence and understanding. And that's why the initiation part, when you talk about, King Leonidas and the wolf, is having that confidence that, as a young boy, that into masculine, into malehood, into manhood, and to create that part of you is giving you that confidence and understanding at a younger age of who you are, what you're strong at, what you're capable of. And that's why they, write a passage is taking the boys away from the feminine and bringing them into a masculine circle so they can learn how to challenge another man, know how they are with other men, and physically stand, right? Because men and women, I mean, the humanity, I mean, we're still animals in some way. So it's,
Yeah. Certainly.
I look at it as like this, is that men can be wild like animals and need to learn how to have a certain ability of discernment, understanding, and confidence, and stability and structure for themselves in order to be human men and not killers or animalistic or wild. Right now,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
not going to go to jail.
Socialized,
They're
pro social.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Positive
That's so
masculinity, they would
masculinity.
call it today.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
See, the thing also that
Mm,
bridges anthropology to psychology surrounding initiation is this. I didn't complete the thought previously. If you had a King Leonidas as a boy taken out into the blizzard and then the wolf approaches him and he survives the night, what he has done is he has faced the ultimate anxiety provoking thing for all
mm,
humans, which is death. Now,
yeah,
if the elders of the village typically set some boundaries and guardrails around the initiation ceremonies, like today's fraternities in college are supposed to not overly haze their recruits or place them in mortal danger, they might make them feel very threatened, even though there isn't a real physical threat. And the purpose of it was if you have faced death and won as an adolescent, survived it, what else is there to fear in life? Now you're ready to
bingo.
go. You're a man now in the sense that you need to face anything that isn't foolhardily life threatening. You
Yeah,
can face jumping off the high dive at the pool. You can face yelling at a bully, making a bully go away. You could face losing a job, searching for a job. You could face the end of a relationship. It's not
Yeah.
death. Nothing
Yeah.
compares to death.
Exactly. Bingo. Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. That was very on point to what I was speaking to. It's you get that sense of confidence in knowing.
Yeah. I like your use of the word stoicism because my colleagues, John Barry, Martin Seeger, Roger Kingersley, Luke Sullivan
Mm.
in London, UCL London, and the Center for Male Psychology there, they have not discovered, but uncovered three of the numerous masculine instincts and essentially proven them to exist. So they aren't socialized, they aren't passed on from grandfather to grandson, through sociology. They are enduring psychological epiphenomena of the biology of being male. And
Mhm.
one of them is, I thought surprisingly to be discovered so early, a stoicism instinct in males, meaning one doesn't display their emotions to the public or to other males, or maybe even to females, because it shames them to do so, demasculinizes them,
Mhm.
emasculinates them,
Yeah.
emasculinate or emasculate.
Label.
Yeah. They used to call it castration, but I guess we don't use such brutal terms as Freud once did
Yeah.
anymore. So that's one male instinct. It's basically stoicism. Don't put your emotions on display. If we were 100,000 years ago in hunter gatherer tribes, 12 men out on a hunting party, and one of them broke down in tears about killing Bambi, it would ruin the morale of the hunting party. Or if they
Mhm.
were going to war against another tribe and one of them broke down crying because he misses his mom, it's going to ruin the morale. So this evolved in males to not put
Yeah.
emotions on display, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. The emotion.
And that's exactly what part of the book as well is to learn about your emotions because men don't know about their emotions. They haven't learned about their emotions and what to do with their emotions. So as someone who is, back in the day, who is very emotional growing up in New York City, I got triggered by people and, reactive towards people. And I don't do that anymore because I've done the work around why that would happen, where it came from, but I think that's part of it is that men don't know who they are and haven't learned to be who they truly are meant to be, and they're letting the boy drive the bus
Yeah.
and not taking back over control, and that comes down to like self love, self trust, self forgiveness, which are big parts of it.
I think a lot of men don't know who they are emotionally. They're not in touch with their emotions. But this instinct also exists for all
Yeah,
males, biological males, to not express it outwardly. So they all have an inner world, and some of them have not explored that a lot, but some have. And I think in the past decade or two, may have found that the culture surrounding them is not real efficient toward them. It doesn't encourage them to explore that in themselves
no,
or give them
especially with social
language
media.
for how to interact with
Right.
females or with each other, or even give them places to do so. There's been a lot of
Exactly.
writing about that. That 100 years ago, there were pubs, and males would go to work in the Industrial Revolution, then they'd go to the pub and they'd convene with each other and get some brotherhood and feel that kind of bond, and then go home and be a strong husband and a
Mhm.
loving husband. But all those public spaces were taken away from
Yeah.
males.
Yeah, and that's what it is that men are missing out on brotherhood. And part of what I express in the book is creating that brotherhood or and inviting men into a circle, into a group to create that initiation between each other and that challenge between each other. and understanding to have a shoulder to cry on. You know, it's like men are often ashamed or fearful that if they cry in front of their friend, that they're going to be seen as weak. And I don't see in that going through something hard and crying as men as something weak. I think it's something very powerful and to show strength and courage. If a man's available to to feel something, how what does he do? In what situation does he do it in? It depends on whether it's weak or not. And if he's doing it out of begging and manipulation and trying to save a relationship, I would see
Yeah.
that as weak, right? Rather than going outside crying, okay, the relationship is over, but grieving, allowing that loss to flow through you, to feel it, to let it out, to get it out, so you can continue to show up in your power and in your presence
Mm.
and self trust and self forgiveness and find that peace again within.
On that count, I have a question for you. After decades of studying both human courtship and pathologic narcissism, I notice a kind of a whole bunch of psychological catch 22s, if you will. And I'll give you some examples of them. And how can a man transcend these? Let me give them to you. One would be you're told by the culture men are needed to maybe work and maybe lead, or individual women want them to lead in a relationship or in a company, be a leader. But then they go and say, no, don't be a leader on your own terms. Do what I tell you to do. And that's called leading somehow. Then they're not attracted to you, or they don't respect you, and they certainly don't honor you. So then you're a bad boy. You're a bad guy. And you really genuinely wanted to join in and be a leader in the first place.
Yeah.
But the culture told you, do it, but you can't. So
Yeah.
that's one
And
catch 22. Let me
yeah,
give you
that's the
one more.
catch.
Let me give you one more. When you're the man about town, you're charismatic, you're attractive, you run in a bunch of circles, you have lots of friends. It's attractive. But you're shying away from commitment for as long as you can. You have tons of options romantically. It can get stale and old and meaningless and be empty, as you
Hmm.
described, if you go
Yep.
too far. So at some point, maybe you decide, I want to pick a really good person and try this commitment thing. I want to pick somebody really good
Yep.
who I like and likes me. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go for it. And then you do. Now you've crossed from charisma and sexual attraction into a kind of friendship, boyfriend, girlfriend, lasting dating, exclusive dating. And then from that's the middle phase of human courtship. And then from there, at some point, you might have some kind of spiritual sacrament or religious beliefs or just moral beliefs of some sort where you believe you could actually vow to a person for life. And the
Hmm.
timing is right. And maybe you would like to have children, and so would she. So you commit. But once you get into all that work of children and you're still expected to make more money than they are, even if they're a high power corporate person themselves, you need to make more than them or you're not as attractive. And so you're doing that. And that causes you to get the dad bod because when are you going to go to the gym? You need to go to the gym every
Hmm.
day if you're not going to have a dad bod at your age. And then you're made fun of for having a dad bod, paying all the bills and making more money than them. As one publishing executive I showed my book to many years ago once said, I'm worth $300 million. What man is going to qualify for me? Who do you think you are telling me about how to find love? I make 300 million. I have 300 million. I need a man that has more than that.
Yeah, that's because he
How
made
many are there?
money. Yeah, money.
My
He's rite
my
of
point is
passage.
once you get the dad bod, you have children,
Yeah.
you're married for years, you're working like 4 times harder than you ever did as a single man. Sexual attraction is gonna fade for sure. In fact, it's destined to biologically, no matter what, even without all these cultural influences. And what was supposed to happen was you found a truly good person, you joined lives, but you were supported by the surrounding culture, extended family, community, something was
Yeah.
supporting you staying together and having made verbal vows for life that no matter what, you were going to talk and figure things out, even if you are not attracted to each other for a while. You need to
Right.
figure out how to be again. But then that doesn't happen in this day and age. So the catch 22 I'm, throwing to you to respond to is how can you be not quite a perpetual Peter Pan playboy who's very charismatic and can work out every day and have a perfect body and be distant, which is attractive because they want to capture you into a
Hmm.
commitment versus saying, all right, I'll do it. I think I found a good one. I'm going to vow for life to this person. But then the moment you do, you're like a used car. You're not, it's now a used car taken off the new car lot. The
Right.
value immediately has plummeted because now you're
Mm.
captured and you can't go being a cheater playboy to revivify the sexual attraction. You can't win if the culture doesn't support kind of forcing you to
Yeah.
stay together to work it out.
Right. And that's part of it is, when, why also the book is here, right? Passage is because of those things. And, one of the things I learned while going through the divorce before I found, went to, different programs and understood. And one was called PIES, physical and intellectual,
Emotional and spiritual.
spiritual, emotional, and spiritual.
Yeah.
And that's part of it is that, when we get into a relationship, we get married, we have kids, we tend to lose focus on ourselves and start sacrificing and giving everything of ourselves away. And I think part of those situations that catch 22 is why this book for me now is so important for any man in any situation, any relationship, is that it's a coming back to home. It's coming back to self. It's coming back to like, I need to work out. I need to eat better. I need to stop drinking as much. I need to, like boom, 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 boom. And then start looking at the pros and cons that are affecting your life in a certain way that are just not being genuine to yourself. And it comes through self forgiveness, it comes through self love, and it comes through self trust. And those three things, for a man are very important, very powerful pieces to understand for himself. I want to take care of my body. I'm going to make a commitment and I'm going to keep the commitment. Yeah, my wife wants me to be home. She wants me to do this and this and this, but I need to take care of me and I need to let her know in a masculine way, like, hey, I will get those things on, but I got to do this for me first. And that's okay. But if you are afraid, you get into a relationship, and I've met many men where they get into a relationship and the wife told them that they can't go mountain biking anymore, which is part of their
Mm,
their way of letting off steam and getting clarity
yeah.
and letting out anger and frustration and resentment. And he had to start thinking around and taking his bike and going to the mountain. And when he would get caught, his wife would be all upset at him.
Sure. Uh,
You know, for example.
sure.
So it comes back to you
Well,
taking care of you at the end of the day
what,
within the relationship, the ecosystem of the relationship.
well, there's a super sneaky full psychological principle that rears its ugly head at this point. Males will do some seemingly irrational things at certain junctures of their lives. The week my first child was born, I went and bought 3 electric guitars. Why did I do that? Well, I love singing and I love playing guitar, and I go and I buy 3 electric guitars, and I didn't understand what's so wrong with that. What was I doing? I was maintaining, a sense of self, dignity, and uniqueness in my interests as I saw a whole new channel that I felt morally obliged and instinctually obliged to just surrender everything toward, which is the child. And
Right.
I think women do that as well. But I can't tell you how many male patients I've had almost universally come to me after a child is born and say, the love just disappeared. Nothing else was
Mm.
coming my way anymore.
Yeah.
It was 100% on the child and I need to deliver there too. at least as much, if not more, in the financial realm, and there's nothing coming to me from anywhere. In which
And
case,
that's the
the man
sacrifice,
would
yeah.
probably have to have some kind of spiritual practice to,
Yeah,
have a source of energy, spiritual
yeah,
energy to be
daily
able to.
daily ritual, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
daily rituals, and that's why men need to have a structure and daily rituals, which is all explained in the book that I wrote, Rite of Passage, right? Is learning the structures that we need to have those daily rituals. You know, there's a workbook with it to ask certain questions that will provoke you emotionally to get you to a place of understanding what it is that you need for yourself. What am I doing wrong for me, or what do I need to do now? Start doing right for me.
yeah,
There's you, there's your wife, there's your kid, and then there's a relationship between you and your wife, and that is its own living thing. And then there's a relationship between you and your kids, that's its own living thing. And you're both everybody's pouring into those relationships, those living things, but they're invisible, but they're there. Like
yeah,
energy,
yeah.
emotion, right? There's emotion, there's an understanding there.
Said there was
But
an
if you're
evil,
not,
sneaky thing that I never
yeah,
addressed. Okay, and what it is this. But you made me. The reason you made me think of this is because it's like there are two sides to the
yeah,
mirror, uh,
yeah,
in which you are looking at yourself, and I could imagine some traumatized women saying, when you said, "No, you need to kind of stick to your guns, keep your hobbies, and also maintain your fitness, maintain your physical health and nutrition, even if your spouse says, no, I need you to not do that for your body. I need you to
yeah,
attend to these
yeah.
chores
Because
over
if you
here."
don't, she'll never respect you.
Couldn't, yeah, correct. But couldn't a person also make a case to say, you're being so selfish?
Yeah,
That's
but
the,
what's that gonna yeah, what's that and that's the thing that gets the
yeah,
resentment and the anger and the hurt going in the relationship. If you're more masculine in the sense of protecting yourself and your integrity, and you're being within integrity for you, you're obviously gonna be in integrity for her, and she's gonna love the fact that you said no to her. Like, "Hey, this is me time. Those things will be done, and as long as you go and get those things done and show them that you are hearing her and you are understanding her, doesn't matter when they're gonna get done as long as they get done
that, that's a
within it.
test that Natalie
Yeah, that's a
Martinek, I
test.
go back to thinking about Natalie Martinek writing, that's a test, I think, of narcissism there. Because if you say, no, I need to care for my body so I can work hard and be healthy and have a longer life and keep serving you, a non narcissist, empathic person would get that and be
Yeah,
attracted to that. Highly narcissistic spouse would blow her top and have a rage fit on you
yeah,
for doing that. And it would not be attractive to that
yeah.
person. Why? They're not playing the game of attraction. They're not playing the game of love. They're playing the game of, how can I take you for all you're worth? What can I get out of you?
Yeah, that actually
Right?
reminds me of a situation with my ex-wife, for example, is I wanted to buy a rowing machine because we were training Kung Fu, and one of the things that I wanted to get back in shape, and the rowing machine for me was one of the best. And I found one for like, half the price, and I brought it home, and she told me I couldn't get it. I'm like, why can't I get it? Where are you gonna put it? And I'm like, put it behind the couch. So I bought it anyway. I put it behind the couch. And then when she saw that I got it, she got so upset with me. And it's really funny how she got upset with me because anytime that she would hide money and buy a program for herself, I remember back in the day where I didn't have money for rent, and I needed another like $1,000, and I was like just in a weird situation at that point. Her mother had sent her money, and she knew that I was trying to hustle and get this money. And then I come home. Oh, by the way, I just spent $1,300 on this program to learn how to like do something with herbs. And I'm going there. You did what? Like I'm out here stuck financially trying to cover rent, and you
Well, does
have
that
a
sound like
thousand.
someone
You know,
partnering?
no,
Is that partnering?
no,
Yeah. Well,
no, no.
yeah.
And it even happened again recently, where when she was back with me and she had 40,000 in gold, and I asked her to help out with something, and that just created a war. I'm only here to spend your money. I'm not here to spend mine.
Well, I guess
Yeah,
step one of anything is discernment of
yeah,
narcissism before you even get involved with a person.
exactly,
Kind of hard to
exactly.
do. I'll say this. we're talking about let's wrap it all together here. We're talking about rite of passage, initiation of
Yes.
men, heal the boy to heal the man. That's your book. Your
Yep.
site is renewingtheman.com. And
The site is going through reconstruction right now, but the email is working. It's WASH at renewingtheman.com. Wash at renewing.com.
wash at
So,
renewingtheman.com, which stands for
yeah.
Wally
Wally
Shaykoun. So wash at renewingtheman.com is
dot
a way to
com.
reach you, in which you also do individual one-on-one counseling
Yes.
or coaching,
One coaching.
one-on-one training in various areas of life for males and females. Thinking of this initiation thing, and we've talked about relationships, dating, marriage, males, females. One way to kind of wrap it all up, I think, is a lot of the psychological research of the last 50, 60, 70, 80 years has centered on human development vis-a-vis the mother and child, how the
Yeah.
child develops under the emotional auspices of the mother. And the mother teaches the child, among many other things, how to name emotions. She looks into the eyes of the child and says, "Oh, you're sad," or "Oh, you're angry." And the child learns to put words together
Mm,
with emotions and then is able to start using emotions because of the mother doing this. And we've all heard of what are called imprinting phenomena, one of which is attachment. There's a lot of work these days on attachment styles and people
mhm.
pairing up based on their attachment styles. There's bonding, which is less instinctual and more emotional. Like we say, friends share a bond,
Right.
a friendship bond, and romantic couples do that as well. And at some point, a child introjects their same sex parent into their own identity to some degree, and they
Mhm.
introject something of the opposite sex parent that is attractive core generator of attraction, the kind of person you're going to choose. And Freud called that the Oedipus, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so that's three imprinting phenomena, but I believe there is a fourth. And Konrad Lorenz discovered imprinting. He was the Austrian ethologist, animal behaviorist, who
mhm,
spent summers on his family's farm in the mountains of Austria. And one day he's walking through the field, and all of a sudden, all these ducklings start following him. And he's like,
mhm,
"What is going on? These little ducklings won't leave me alone. They're following me around like I'm their mother." And the mother
mhm,
was not there. And he coined this imprinting. And essentially, what it was is an instinct that is only turned on in the right timing
mhm,
and the right conditions. Isn't that exactly the same as human courtship? That if we don't have the right conditions and the right timing with each other, then courtship fails at that step,
right,
whatever step we're at.
right,
Well, the
yeah,
fourth imprinting phenomenon is, I think, initiation,
yeah,
which I think gets adolescent and adult males and females to feel this kind of attachment and bond with a peer group. For example, I feel bond with all doctors, all
right,
MDs, because it's like we went to war together because med school was horrible. It was like being at war, 110, 120 hour work week for years, and then residency. So I feel initiated into that group and I feel a bond and an attachment with them. You do the same in your peer group. Everybody goes through this where they go through some kind of initiation process through their education, graduation. Males who've divorced feel a kinship.
mhm,
Males who have been in the military feel a kinship. Males who've been on a sports team feel a kinship. And I
yeah,
think it's the fourth and last imprinting phenomenon that finally gets us over the finish line to stable adulthood where we are generative and can give to a
yeah,
next generation.
yeah, 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 and then it's interesting that you said that because it's something that for myself, I realized too, and I was able to my mother and my sister came for the holiday from New York to Slovenia to visit me, and a few nights ago before Christmas, I told her, I'm like, thank you for be part of this journey, for giving me the understanding of emotions and being able to have the discernment to, what's the word, define what I'm feeling, where it came from, and part of what I have in this gift I wouldn't have if it wasn't for her, in some
Mm,
capacity.
yes,
So,
absolutely. So,
so
I didn't say at the outset, you live in Slovenia, and that's the birthplace of your ex-wife,
that's what then my kids were both
and
born here in
that's and your
Slovenia.
kids were both born there too, and that's quite an interesting place. You have a culture it has a culture of its own. You're also near Italy, you're near Croatia,
Austria, and I will
Hungary.
be planning on doing retreats here, in 2026
Wow.
as well.
Look forward to that. That is gonna be
Yeah,
something special to have,
exactly,
intensives and retreats.
exactly.
Wonderful. Well, listen, Wally, we've covered a lot of things, and, I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah,
D
thank you for having me.
look, you have a nice day, and I'll have a pleasant sleep.
Sweet dreams, as they
The
say,
time
right?
zones, yeah.
Exactly.
Good talking to
Thank
you,
you,
buddy.
Dr. Paul. I appreciate it. You too. Have a good one.
Thanks. You too.
Bye. Bye. Bye.